Hey y'all, welcome back to Mirror Expressions, a channel where I take the time to share a little bit of myself with you all. And I invite y'all to come on in the house and do the same. Y'all, excuse my hair. Look, it's been a long day. And sometimes you just want to pull up at your face. But anyway, oh goodness. Anyways, y'all go ahead, hit that thumbs up button for me. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. And as always, let me know how y'all are doing out there, my YouTube family. If you are doing amazing, go ahead and drop me a mirror emoji down in the chat. And if you're not, as always, I encourage you to do what you must to get back to a healthier you, right? All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get into it. We are the last episode of A Friend of the Family. Episode 9 is called Revelation. And we open up with these flashbacks of Jan and B at the very beginning when he first started to groom her. And how he started calling her Dolly because he said she looked like a little doll or whatever. And so, and then it goes to present day, and we see Jan. She's meeting with a therapist, and she's drawing, making a drawing, and it's somebody on a beach. And so the therapist is like, you know, who is that? Is that you? And Jan was pretty much like, no, it's my sister, Susan. And so her therapist asks, you know, well, what is she doing on the beach, you know? And Jan doesn't answer, you know, she gets real quiet. And so the therapist, you know, was very patient. She just kind of, she's like, you know, it's okay. We don't have to talk. You know, I had a new dog, a cat that kept me up all night anyway, or something to that effect or whatever. And so Jan finally starts talking again, and she's immediately just goes into how she hates Bob and Marianne. Those were her words. I was like, okay, so she's all the way not calling her parents any kind of parents at all. It's Bob and Marianne, right? And so she's saying that she hates them for treating her and B like they're some kind of criminals. And so her therapist goes on to say, well, Jan, you know, B is an adult. He has different responsibilities than you do. And Jan was just like, no, he doesn't. We have the same responsibilities. And so the therapist is just like, you know, well, what responsibilities do you have? And so, you know, of course, in Jan's head, she's probably thinking about this responsibility of saving this planet, having this baby, or whatever. But we don't see Jan ever answer. She instead just kind of starts scribbling real angry, like on the paper that she had been drawing on. So then we see Jan at the florist shop with her dad, right? And he's, you know, he's doing his best to kind of try to make some small talk with her. He's talking to her about having driving lessons. He lets her know that he loves her very much and he understands that things have been hard. And so, I don't know, some kind of way the conversation ended up with, you know, B is going to be in jail for quite a long time. And so Jan was just like, really? Will he be out before I'm 16? And Bob is just like, no, he'll be lucky to get out before you're the age of 30, pretty much. And so we see Jan is writing him a letter. And so as it kind of superimposes one, like we see her reading the letter as she's writing it, but then in the flip side, we see him reading the letter as he's received it, if that makes sense. So the two are kind of like superimposed onto each other. And so he's reading the letter to his cellmates as if Jan is some grown woman versus a child writing him this love letter and how she's pining away for him and she's waiting on him and nobody would have her love but him. And so at some point, you know, she mentioned about how, excuse me, B is her assigned male companion. So when he reads it out loud, now he's leaving stuff off like that. He's leaving words out like that as he's reading it to his cellmates or whatever. So in the letter, you know, Jan kind of implied that if they can't take her, if they can't be together, then she doesn't want to be here. So basically saying she wants to pretty much end her own life. And so we see her searching through her parents' drawers because remember, Bob had got him a weapon when he went to go get Jan. And so she's searching for that weapon because remember, she had saw it. She had seen it. And so I'm just like, how at this point did she even know how to contact him? Like, how did she get his, like, where to send his mail to? Like, I'm sure there were other correctional facilities, so you don't necessarily just be sent to, I don't know. It's just weird to me. Like, it's just weird. But some kind of way, she was able to get in contact with him, write him this letter. And all you see is his cellmates, like, telling him, oh, that letter is so beautiful. Y'all have so much love, yada, yada, yada. And like I said, not knowing the whole time that this is coming from a child, right? And so, next thing we see, they're in court. And Marianne is on the stand. And B's attorney is just kind of drilling her. He's asking her, did she know that B was going to a mental health facility in California? And she was just like, yeah. He told me it was for depression. And so the attorney was just like, but you also knew he was being treated for issues surrounding your daughter Jan, right? And so Marianne was just like, basically, well, B had a whole fixation on the entire family. It wasn't just Jan. So why would she think that? And so he gonna say, well, no, I think Jan was just like, no, let me back it up. So the attorney was just like, ask Marianne, you know, he was going to a mental health facility out there, right? And so Marianne was just like, yeah, but I thought it was for depression. And then that's when the attorney was just like, well, you knew he had a fixation on Jan. You knew he was seeing the therapist for issues surrounding Jan, right? And Marianne, that's when she said, no, he has a fixation on the entire family, right? And so then the little attorney was kind of snarky, gonna tell her, well, have you read the book Lolita? Because you're just like the mother in it. I said, oh, So he was just like, well, can you say that you didn't realize that something sexual was going on between B and Jan, right? And she hesitates or whatever. And then she finally was just like, you know, no, I didn't think about that because I was too focused on how he was telling me how he felt about me, that I didn't think he had anything, that there was anything with Jan, because it was all about me. He was telling me he felt this and that way about me. So why would I think he was also having those feelings for my daughter? I said, I mean, even she did say, you know, she was a fool for being that naive about things, and that, you know, she recognizes him as a predator now. But I was just like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm glad that she has come to that realization, though, because it seems that, you know, that she's unbreakable now at this point. Like, well, just as a whole, as a family as a whole, you know, they seem to be like more on one accord and more unbreakable, where B is just not able to slide in through them cracks on them. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. So anyway, Bob ended up getting on the stand next, right? And so B's attorney's doing the question again. And so he asked him, then the FBI and their attorney like tell them to paint B out to be like this powerful person that controls people. And Bob was just like, I don't need nobody to tell me that. He is. And I know that for a fact. You know what I'm saying? And the whole time, y'all, B was just sitting there laughing and smiling, like just getting a kick out of the whole thing. Like, I was just like, oh, he just disgusts me, y'all. You know, this has been like a train wreck that you can't turn away from. I don't know if I've described it before when it comes to watching this whole series, but it has. But I will say I'm so glad that this is the last episode. I believe it is. And we got to end it. So I believe it is. Because it was just, But anyway, B ends up getting acquitted because the judge said he was acting out of mental distress. Mental issues, basically. And so she put him into like a mental health facility, but he was not to serve any more jail time. And I'm just like, how is this pervert? How does he keep getting off? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just unbelievable. And so, I mean, just tragic, y'all. Just tragic. So Jan, we see her, and apparently she started sleeping in her sister's room, like on the floor. And so they're having one of their friends over. So it's kind of like a little sleepover. And so we realized, you know, that Jan is still having problems sleeping. She's up talking to herself. Her friend hears her, and Jan is kind of just trying to play it off like she was just having a dream or something. And the whole time she was over there praying that B gets at the mental health facility. You know what I'm saying? And so we end up seeing Bob. He's talking with the therapist as well. He's saying that Jan won't look at him. She won't touch him. You know, and he doesn't know why. He doesn't understand what's going on. And he wishes he knew what she needed, you know, to help her get into a better place. And so the therapist basically said, you know, what she needs is freedom to grow up. But she's going to need you all's continued support so that when she is ready to talk, she knows that you all are going to be there for her. And I get what she's saying, because now the reality of the situation is Jan's childhood has been stripped from her. You know what I'm saying? And not to say that you have to treat her like a grown woman, but that innocence has been stripped from her. You know, so you're going to have to loosen those reins. Like she said, grant her freedom, but you still have to support your child and let her know that, hey, we're here, we got you. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you're ready, we're ready. You know, so I get what she's saying from a therapist's point of view, but I can also see as a parent how hard that would be, because especially living in fear of, well, this has happened again and again, like he's found some way to creep in and get my child. Like, how do I stop that from happening? You know, and so B said, you know, what if it's too late? Y'all, I just could feel his heart crushing. I could. So the therapist, she was just like, she goes in her papers and she pulls out this picture that Jan drew in one of their earlier sessions. She was just like, she drew this when I asked her to draw me a picture of her family. So it was a picture of Bob, Mary Ann, the two sisters, Karen and Susan, and their two dogs. And so soon as I saw it, the first thing I noticed was that Jan was not in that picture. And so I was like, well, you know, she did say draw your family, not necessarily say your family and you. I said, so maybe she was thinking along those lines and just drew her family. So, but Bob ended up saying the exact thing that I was thinking. He was just like, she's not in this picture. I noticed that. He got all teary-eyed, tearful when he saw it because he saw him. But then he was like, she's not there. And the therapist said, you know, even though she's physically home, her mind isn't, like, she's just not ready to be there yet. She's not ready to be home. And so she didn't include herself. But when she thinks of her family, this is what the therapist is telling Bob, but when she thinks of her family, you are in it. This is her family. You all are who she considers, you know. And so she was just like, you know, it's a place of belonging. So I love seeing that not only Jan was getting professional help, but that at least Bob was too, you know. I really would hope that the whole family did, like even the siblings, you know, and not to say that they didn't. We just didn't get to see if that was a real thing or reality or not for them. But I suspect it probably was. But anyway, so B ended up having Bob set up. And it was done by them cellmates that he had been in prison with, in jail with. I don't know if he was in jail or prison, but I'm going to assume jail. And so, yeah, it was by them fools that he was in jail with. And they end up setting the floral shop on fire. So we see them, like, sitting outside the floral shop as Bob is, you know, getting ready to close down for the night or whatever. And we see the guys and they're talking like, oh, he deserves this for how he treated B and all this basically. And so the next thing you know, the Brobergs end up getting a call and they all rush down to the floral shop. And so it's Mary Ann and 3 girls and they're all crying. They're hysterical because all they see is a big fire and they don't know what's going on. They don't know where Bob is. They don't know if he's safe, if he made it out okay. You know, they don't know anything. And Jan is just crying. And she thinks that it's all her fault, right? And so they end up finally spotting Bob and he's fine. I have to guess he probably had already left when the fire first started. I don't know. But he got out. He was safe and sound. And so they all run to him, all of them except for Jan. And, you know, he's wrapping his arms around his entire family. He's trying to calm them. And he's basically, you know, like, let it burn, because everything that I need is right here, basically. And he was talking about his family, you know what I'm saying? And Jan, in the meantime, is just kind of standing to the back, just watching everything. You know, she's watching it burn. She's crying. And then her eyes gaze up to the sky. And all she's thinking about or hearing in her head is how Bob had told her that Zeta and Zethra are mad with her. They're angry with her that she hasn't fulfilled the mission yet. And that she seems to be losing hope, right? And so, thus Jan is thinking this is all her fault, that her dad's building is burning. So we end up seeing B. He's still in the mental hospital working on his second book. Like, why? But he's in there working on his second book, typing away at the typewriter. When one of the nurses come in, and she tells him, well, you had 2 visitors, 2 males, and, you know, but of course you're not granted visitation. So we couldn't let them come see you. But then she slips him this note. And she was just like, I'm really supposed to turn this into the doctor, but here you go. And B had ended up telling her some, just, you know how he is with his storytelling. Like, he had told her something about the guys were probably coming in to check on him and tell him about his family because he got a kid. They got like one leg, and the mama don't take care of the kid because she too busy running off with some other dude. Like, you know, he had this whole side tale. And so the nurse fell for the okie doke. And I'm just like, lady, don't you know where you are working? You are like in a mental health facility. Like, this is what they do. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? You know, because some of them people so good, they would have you believing the sky is black. You know what I'm saying? Just how they talk. And so you can't easily be, and not to say that everybody in a mental health facility is there to tell the lies, but I'm just saying, that's where you are. So you just can't take things for face value, because there are some people that they just have, that is part of their sickness. They just have that gift. And I'm saying it's a gift, but they're using it in the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? And they have you believing anything. And I'm just like, this absurd tale, and you just fell for it. So she ends up giving him the letter that the people done wrote. And on the letter, they just said, did it. That's what it said, did it. And all you see is B just happy as hell, because he know he again has caused these people some more anguish. Or so he thought. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure there was a lot of aftermath with him losing his shop and all that. But like Bob has said, let it burn. The most important things are right here. And that was his family. And that was one thing B could not take away. And I believe had he known that, he would have been upset. He would have been upset. But here he is rejoicing, probably because, like I said, he thought he was causing them people some more anger. Y'all hear my baby in the background. And you're like, it's Friday night. I'm staying up as late as I want. I told him he got until I finish these reviews. But anyway, so Jan, you know, it's fall of 1977 right now. And so she keeps having these flashbacks of her time with B. And then she ends up getting this call from somebody at the mental health facility on behalf of B. So I'm just going to have to assume it was the same nurse. Like, we don't get that confirmation for sure, but it's kind of implied. And so she goes on to tell him that she has a message for Dolly. Oh, every time I hear that, it's just sickening. So she has a message for Dolly from B. And he wants to let her know that he'll be getting out soon. And so she goes on to say, you know, I don't even know why he was in here. He didn't belong here. And then she gives Jan an address and a date and a time where to meet him. Like, if you didn't think he belonged there, why are you sending cryptic messages to a child? Because you knew good and doggone well there was not a woman on that end that you were calling Dolly. And then you also knew, well, I'm going to say that, but she did say her father. But even with that, you knew that that wasn't his child if you have to send a message like that to the child and not the mother. Like, it's just foolery. And so, I was just like, you know, I hope that she was held accountable. Now, we're going to see toward the end that, you know, she got swept up in the BS a lot further than what we're just thinking. But I hope that she was reprimanded because, listen, y'all, I work at a mental health facility as a nurse at that. So every patient you get and you take care of, you are given a rundown. And not just a one-time rundown. Every time you come in for a shift, you're getting a rundown on why that patient is there, what their behaviors have been, what they're exhibiting that particular day. So there is no way in hell, I feel this in my bone. There's no way in hell that that nurse did not know why B was in that mental health facility. And then knowing that, you still helped him perpetuate the things that he was doing by sneaking him letters, making these phone calls for him, giving cryptic messages. Like, it's just unbelievable. And I just really hope that she was held responsible to some degree for her part in that, helping to keep things going, you know? Anyway, hold on, y'all. It's allergy season, y'all. So, anyway. So, Jan ends up, he gets out. She goes to meet him, you know, using the address that the nurse had given her or whatever. And be waiting on at that doggone motorhome of his. And Jan, she drove up there by herself. And I think she was in her parents' car. So, again, it was just weird. Like, first of all, Jan's not 16 as of yet. So, did they really just allow her to go off with their car? Like, I didn't understand that. Now, Jan told B that her parents thought she was with her friend at some event at the church. But again, did you just allow her to drive by herself with her girlfriend in the car and she's not old enough to be driving? Like, did that just happen or did she take the car? Y'all, so many unanswered questions about this whole scenario, this whole situation, period. So anyway, baby, she stepped at that car looking all snazzy and jazzy, baby. She had on her good dress. She had a little makeup on, a little red lipstick, right? And so B was pretty much like, what do you have on? And then, because he was talking about the lipstick, and he made her wipe it off. He was just like, either you wipe it off or I'm going to wipe it off. And then he tells her, you know, you don't have to wear lipstick and stuff. You have natural beauty. I said, He just wants to keep her looking as young as he can because that's what he's attracted to. And meanwhile, Jan thinking, okay, this grown man attracted to me, so I'm on my grown woman-ish. And so now she's really trying to look grown, you know. And what she ain't realizing is that, no, he really wants that youthful look from you. That's what's really getting him off or whatever. So Jan is asking him about the mission. Does he think that they can be given more time to complete the mission? And Bob was just like, you know, hey, B was just like, you know what? Let's talk about that later. And then he leads her on into the motorhome because you already know right then and there where his mind was at. So, meanwhile, we see Marianne and Bob. They're at home and they're kind of just surmising about what Jan is doing and all this. And I said it really looked like they were trying to convince themselves that Jan is really where she said she was going to be at. But, you know, they didn't let that linger too long. And Marianne ends up you know, just telling Bob how she misses him. She misses being with him. So I'm kind of assuming she meant, you know, sexually, like maybe they just have not been intimate since everything just came out in the open. And so she tells him, you know, that she's willing to talk about things. Like she wants to know what happened between B and Bob. But Bob said, Bob ain't ready, baby. Bob said, there is nothing to talk about. So I think Bob just has to get through his own. He has to still process things, and he's just not there yet. You know what I'm saying? So back at the motorhome, we kind of see Jan and B just both kind of getting dressed. And so Jan is asking him, you know, does he think it worked this time? And he's just like, I don't know. And y'all, I was just thinking, like, I think I mentioned this last video, but at this point, he's just really looking like he's tired of keeping up the lie. Like, he just wants Jan, well, because, you know, that's easy person to get the sexuals out of, right? But he's losing interest in her as her being a younger child. Like, because she's growing out of that age that he likes. You know what I'm saying? And so I think at this point, he's just kind of tired, because even as he's kind of responding to her, whereas he will elaborate on his little storytelling, you know, like when she first got there and she asked, well, do you think we could get more time? You know, he probably would have, a while ago, probably would have elaborated, came up with something to tell what Zeta and Zephyr said, yada, yada, yada. And he was just kind of like, we'll talk about that later. And like, even now, as she's asking him, well, do you think it worked? He's just like, I don't know, you know, whereas a while ago, it would have been like, well, you know, Zeta and Zephyr said, la, 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 you know, constantly leading her on with all these lies, you know. And I just really think he's just kind of getting tired of her. And at this point, she's really basically disposable to him. But, you know, he's just using her for his simple pleasure at this point. Like just to have somebody to get off on, if that makes sense, I guess. I don't think he really has that much interest in her, though, anymore. And so, Jan, as he has like this nonchalant attitude, Jan, on the other hand, she's freaking out. And so she starts asking him, like, what does he think being vaporized would look like? And he was just like, you know, basically, you know, your soul is going to keep getting torn over and over and over until there's nothing left. And so he then tells her, but it ain't going to start with you. It's going to start with somebody close to you. So again, like, you know, he's saying just enough to keep her in that place of fear. So her thing is like, I don't want to be vaporized. And of course, I don't want my loved ones to be vaporized either. You know what I'm saying? And so then he just basically like, well, you know, go home. Pretty much like he brought her there just so he can get off. And then he sent her back home. Like when I say he's just not interested, like it was no extra time with it, no lovey-dovey, or you know how he would love bomb her with gifts. It was just like none of that. And not to say any of that was right, because it absolutely wasn't, but I'm just trying to point out how his behavior has changed when it comes to how he deals with her. You know what I'm saying? So he basically just sends her on her way. And so as they're walking to the car, you know, she said she felt like her dad's shop burning was a sign. She was just like, I knew it was a sign. And B was just like, yup, it sure was. Because, you know, Jan was thinking it was a sign for Zeta and Zephyr that, you know, she wasn't living up to her part of the mission. And so, of course, she's already freaking out from when B just told her that her soul being vaporized would just look like it being torn to shreds until there's nothing left. And, you know, you got to remember, these are very religious people, you know, so she's very worried or concerned about what's going to happen with her soul. You know what I'm saying? And so, and now he's telling her this, and she's already just crying and, you know, basically having a whole panic attack. And so, yeah, I think, hold on, where was I at? So there's Dad. So they're walking to the car. She tells him that, you know, she thought it was a sign. He was just like, yeah. And then, he goes on and say, I lost my place, y'all, but I'll be keeping little notes so it can remind me of what happens next. So he ends up going on to telling her that, you know, you'll be vaporized. Karen's gonna go blind. Susan will have to take your place. Bob will be removed from the family. And so, she's just like, removed? Like, what do you mean removed? And he's gonna say, oh, well, your guess is as good as mine. So, Jan was just like, you know, well, when can I see you again? Because, you know, at this point, she's frantic, right? And she wants to do everything she can to get this baby by B before her 16th birthday. And so, that low down dirty bastard, he gonna say, I wouldn't be surprised if Susan starts getting messages soon. So, of course, that just increased her anxiety. And so, she's wanting to know again, when can she see him? And so, he's just basically like, I don't know. You know, playing this little coy game with her. I don't know. You know, the government is watching me. So, you know, I can't be around you. I can't reach out to you. And so, before she drives off, though, he tells her, you know, if you convince your parents to let us get married, then we won't have to worry about this. And then he tells her that it's all up to her. So he putting all that weight on that baby's shoulders. Like, having her feeling like if the mission doesn't happen, it's all her fault. You know, it's all up to you. Like, you're the one that can convince your parents, but if you don't, it's all up to you, basically. I said, and she's just crying, just full of tears. Like, she even tells him, she was just like, B, I'm scared. I'm scared. And I was just like, it's just sickening. So, we see Jan, she's sleeping on the floor of her sister's bedroom again. And she gets up in the middle of the night. And Susan is just like, girl, go back to bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're always doing this. And so, Jan ends up rambling on about something about, what did she tell Susan? Like, if anything ever happens to you, just know that I tried to save you, or something along those lines. And, girl, Susan didn't know what she was talking about or whatever. So all she know is Jan, this is like becoming a habit. Like, Jan constantly getting up in the night, just talking like off the wall, whatever. So we see the different seasons come and go. And now we are upon Jan's 16th birthday, right? And there's still no baby, right? And so we see her praying for death to come to her and Susan rather than for them to be vaporized, for their soul to be vaporized. So she goes back in her parents' room and she's looking for the weapon again. And they've hid it in a different spot, but she finds it. And so she has this backpack that she's carrying around. So she ends up putting it in her backpack. And so we see them preparing for a party. They're throwing her a party for her 16th birthday, co-ed party. Some of her friends end up showing up at the door. And So Bob goes, greets them, and lets them in. Well, while he's doing that, he notices these two girls or young ladies walking down the street. And they just look real suspect, so, but he notices them. And I say, I wonder if he's thinking that these are the so-called hippies that B had told them that their daughter had gotten mixed up with when she had left the house. But anyway, so we see them two girls, and yeah, they just looking real suspect. And so as the party is starting, Jan comes up. She doesn't look happy at all. Of course, she's just like, I'm sure in her mind, she's just like, I'm 16. You know, the shit's finna hit the fan, basically. You know, you can tell she's just literally waiting on all these bad things to happen. But also, she's taking in as she's looking around, and she's going upstairs to the party, and she's noticing all this stuff. She's noticing that nothing is happening, though, at the same time that she is waiting for things to happen, you know. And so even one of the little boys at the party had asked her, you know, well, the school dance is coming up, and I want to know if you'll go with me, if you'll be my date. And Jan, her mind was just focused on finding her sister Susan, because remember, Susan is supposed to take her place if by the age of 16, she hasn't completed the mission. And so she tells the boy, no, I need to just find my sister. And so, end up, right after that happened, the family dogs end up getting sick. So when Bob had greeted the people at the door and let them inside for the party, the dogs had also been outside, so he had called them inside. And remember, them two little girls, well, they're not little girls, they were women. Them two women had been walking by their house looking all suspect. So the dogs end up getting sick in the middle of the birthday party. And so Mary Ann ends up taking them to the vet, you know, to see what was going on. But in Jan's mind, she's immediately thinking it's her fault because she's now 16 and like she's waiting on all these bad things to happen. When in reality, I believe it was them two women that were walking by that looked all suspect, gave them dogs something to get them seen. Probably was really trying to go and send them to little doggy heaven too, truth be told. So insert. I was just thinking at this point, y'all, with all these months passing by, right? If Jan were to have gotten pregnant, say the last time she saw B when he first got out the mental hospital, right? Like, how was she going to explain that pregnancy? Like, I don't think she would have lied as far as saying it was somebody else. I think she would have been like, it's B's baby. And, you know, I love him. I still want to marry him. Like, but in that, there would have been proof that B was sleeping with this underage girl. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, how was he going to escape that? Because there was for sure going to be some jail time. He was for sure had to have had some jail time behind it. Like, I just don't know, like, what the whole plan with it was, like, if he were to get that girl pregnant. And then I got to thinking, I said, well, maybe those really weren't his intentions, no way. Maybe he just used it as his excuse to continue to have sex with this baby. You know, while she's thinking they have to do this to complete the mission because that's the only way she was going to get pregnant. While he was just using it as an excuse to have sex with her. You know what I'm saying? And that he put that age of 16 on it because, you know, he don't like them too much older than that. He like them younger. And I said, if that was the case, he was probably either using protection when he was having sex with her, and she just didn't know that you couldn't get pregnant that way. You would have to be barebacking it to get pregnant, or either he was probably pulling out when he climaxed. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of the only other reason I could come up with. But yeah, I was just wondering about that. They just came into my head at that point. But anyway, y'all. So the dogs got sick. Mary Ann take them to the doctor. And Jan just runs away because she's thinking, you know, it's starting. It's starting. The dogs are getting sick. So she runs to Susan's room, who is in there wrapping a gift for Jan. You know what I'm saying? So she's just like, Jan, no, you can't come in. I'm wrapping a gift. It's supposed to be a surprise. And so, but Jan ends up coming in and she notices that it's like one of those speakers that B had used when he was acting like the aliens were talking to Jan, right? And so remember the last time she saw him, he had already kind of put it in her head. I'm surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already talking to Susan. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, Jan starts freaking out. She sees the speaker. She starts freaking it out. She starts freaking out. And so she starts reaching in her backpack. And remember, she put that weapon down in her backpack. I said, oh. I said, now before we saw everything, I was just thinking, I said, you know, because I've watched Abducted in Plain Sight. I was like, don't tell me that she tried to take her life and her sister's life. And they kind of left that out the documentary, you know. But she did. She grabbed it. But then Susan just started speaking. She was just like, I got you this. I saved up my money. I mail ordered it. And she turns it on. She says, see, it plays white noise. I got this for you because I know you've been having a difficult time sleeping at night. And I just wanted to help you try to get some better rest. And so that kind of broke Jan down when she heard that, and she dropped the weapon back down into the backpack, and she just kind of dropped everything and went to embrace her sister. And she was just crying. And of course, you know, Susan didn't know what was going on. And she was just like, Jan, you're scaring me. And Jan just said, I hope it's not as bad for you as it was for me. And again, Susan's just like, what are you talking about? Are you going to run away again? And Jan was just pretty much like, you know what? No, there's nowhere left to run. And so we see them sing happy birthday to Jan. And Jan is just miserable, y'all. The entire time, she's just miserable. And she's replaying in her mind the whole thing about being vaporized and how it's like your soul being torn in half over and over again. Like she's playing it in mind, like in B's voice as he told her. And so she ends up going to her room and just laying on the bed, just crying. She had just like a full-on meltdown. Like she was just laying there like she was, as if she was just waiting for the inevitable to happen, or what she felt was inevitable to happen, right? And so the next day, the sun comes shining through the windows, and Jan gets up and she realizes that nothing happened, that she's still here. She, you know, her soul is still intact. I said, that poor baby done cried herself to sleep that night before. She didn't even get up and take her clothes off, y'all. So she ends up going upstairs to see the rest of the family just sitting around the table eating some breakfast. Well, except for Mary Ann. We find out later that Mary Ann went to go get the dogs and that the doggies are fine. You know what I'm saying? The little puppy dogs are fine. And so Jan's looking around at the table. She finally sit down, you know, and they're trying to talk to her. You know, Karen tells her that, you know, their mom went to go get the doggies. And Bob just kind of tells her, you know, hey, I love you. And, you know, Jan pretty much kind of start having like another anxiety attack, basically, is the best I can describe it. Because, you know, she was crying and she looking at them like, is this true? Is everything okay? Like, I think it was just her mind trying to reconcile everything she had been told and she'd been believing in the past couple of years to what she's actually experiencing in the present day. You know what I'm saying? And so her sister ends up, you know, bringing up how she know one of the little boys had asked her to the dance. And they were like, yeah, are you going to go? Yada, yada, yada. And so we just sat, kind of see her get up. She starts crying. And she goes to the phone. And she makes a phone call. Now, we don't really get to see who she calls. But we kind of just assumed that it was the little boy that had asked her to the dance. Because in the next scene, we see her going to the dance with the little boy. And so they're picking her up at her house. And so the little boy, no, he's being a gentleman. He opens up the door and he holds out his hand for Jan to take it so he can help her into the car. And of course, it starts playing back when Bob had told, not Bob, but B had told her, you know, she can't touch another boy, yada, yada, yada. So it takes her a minute to take control of his hand, to take hold of his hand because, you know, she's scared. She's scared to do so because, you know, she feels like if she does, you know, a part of her is still feeling like she's going to upset Zeta and Zelda probably. You know what I'm saying? So, but she eventually does. She takes his hand. She realizes nothing happened. And so she gets in the car and they go on and go to the dance. I said, B is just so full of crap for just, I don't know. I think at this point, Jan is just starting to realize that B is full of crap too. And so, so at the dance, you know, she's still looking uncomfortable, but I said, I'm glad she went on and went and then she put herself out there. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just the way she's going, you know, another way of facing those fears is actually to be out there and then to see that nothing is happening. You know what I'm saying? And so she did, but she was looking terrified, y'all. And she just kept like looking at the different people dancing and how, you know, you're dancing, you're touching in some shape, form, or fashion. And so the guy had asked her, you know, did she want to dance? And at first, you know, she said no. And then it was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And so she finally said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. So they end up dancing. And again, you can tell she's kind of having another anxiety attack because then she starts seeing visions of B on the dance floor. But then she realized they're just visions. You know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah, I had to do some readjusting. My phone died. My camera died. So anyways, I'm just going to pick up where I left off. So we were talking about how Jan had come home from the dance and Bob had waited up on her. And it was just, you know, just to make her feel safe, let her know she's okay, see if she had a great time or whatever. And so Jan is, you know, she's still looking all confused, although things are seemingly to becoming clear for her. Like the picture is just becoming clear that, you know, B was full of it. She, you know, all the things that he told her were just a lie. So she keeps having these anxiety attacks. And I don't know if she really realized that's what they were not, but that's what they were really. You know, she was having anxiety attacks. Like she kept having these visions of B and the things that he told her, the visions of the motorhome where it kind of all started, and how, you know, she had just woke up looking out that window. Like she kept seeing that window, you know, how it just kind of started from there. And so she's crying, she's having a difficult time breathing. So she ends up going to her room and she just starts, she has like this chest where she kept like all of her mementos and things of importance to her in there. So she ends up opening it up and she finds the letters that B wrote and she just starts tearing them up, right? And so, you know, it was just horrendous, you know what I'm saying? And so and she's having her meltdown, her sister, and I think it was her friend that went to the dance with her, was, you know, had come home with her. So they come into the room to kind of see, like, what's all the commotion, what's going on, right? And so, you know, they're basically just checking on Jan and making sure she's okay. And so Jan just starts to tell them everything. Everything. Like, she goes from Mexico all the way up to her supposedly supposed to have this baby with B. And then the other unusual thing was when she was telling them about it, she like spoke about herself in third person. I just said, Like, I bet she did that as a way to kind of remove herself from the situation, like in her head, or like kind of separating herself from it, you know, if that makes sense. Kind of like when she drew that picture of her family and she had everybody but herself in it, because even though she was there physically, like mentally, she was not there. And, you know, she had that mantra that she would say that she learned from that actress that B had taken her to when he had that fun park, that what was it? You breathe out who you are and you breathe in who you want to be. I think that's how it went. So yeah, I think that was just her way of kind of just making that separation. But I did pick up on it that she was speaking about herself in the third person. So the next morning, we kind of see the girls supporting Jan and her going to tell her parents everything that has happened. So she goes upstairs. She tells Bob and Mary Ann everything about the aliens, about, and Mary Ann was just like, you know, what aliens, you know? And she's basically just like, I've been lying to you all for a long time because I didn't want anything bad to happen to y'all. And so she tells them, you know, that she had to complete this mission to save their planet, because she was one of them. And so Bob was just like, you know, how are you supposed to save this planet? And so she tells him about how she was supposed to have had this baby with B, and how she's been trying to do that since she was 12 years of age. I said, that baby was so tore up, y'all. When she was talking to her parents and telling them everything, like, she just kept asking for forgiveness. She was just like, I'm sorry. And I really like how her parents showed up for her in that moment. Like, Bob was just like, you know what, none of this is your fault, you know. And he just finally was able to embrace her. And y'all gotta remember, you know, she wouldn't let her dad touch her at all for so long. So for him to finally embrace his daughter, I know that just, yeah, that pivotal moment right there brought tears to my eyes alone, y'all, because I can just imagine what that meant for her, but also for him in that moment or wherever. And all I could think about was, y'all, that was 4 years. This baby is 16. 4 years he had been telling her that I'm going to impregnate you, and trying to doing the do with her, because I can't say try, but doing the do with her to supposedly get her pregnant. 4 years, y'all. And then we already know that it didn't just start there either. He had already been having sexual misbehaviors with her before then. You know what I'm saying? Oh, y'all. So anyway, as it ends, as the episode ends, we see the family all together. Jan, Bob, Mary Ann, the two sisters, Karen and Susan, and their 2 puppy dogs. You know, they're all sitting around the family table working on a puzzle. And you can just tell that Jan is in a much happier space. Like, you can see it in her actions. You can see it in her face. And so the phone ends up ringing. And so Jan ends up getting up to answer it, y'all. and end up being B. And so she ends up hanging up on him, right? He ain't like that, y'all. He did not like that. He even though like earlier that I said, you know, I didn't think he was too keen on being with her anymore. Like, he's the kind of person though that doesn't like rejection. Like, he's a narcissist, and narcissists do not like rejection. Like, if something is going to come to an end, they like for it to be on their terms, not on somebody else's, right? And so, yeah, he didn't like that. But I said, Jan's family picture is now complete with her in it. Like, literally, and I guess figuratively, more so than literally, because I don't know if she went back and drew herself in. But figuratively, her family picture is now complete because she's in it. And so, we learned that B, hold on, y'all, because I'm trying to see. We end up learning that something happened. Like, hold on, y'all. Let me see. Because I don't want to miss nothing. Because we end up seeing her in court with facing B. She faced him for the first time, and she basically was just like, you know, you have no soul, you know. And she told him, you know, you should be, he called himself trying to apologize to her or whatever. And she was just like, if you're going to apologize, you need to apologize and do your time in jail for all that you've done, basically. And so we learned that shortly after that, B ended up taking his own life. Jan ended up helping to pass a bill that eliminated the statute of limitations for victims like herself that reside in Idaho. And that was back in 2006. And I think in 2003 was when Jan was first ready to come forward with her story. I was trying to see that. I forgot to put that down in my notes, so I'm kind of just remembering. But I do think it was 2003. And so then Mary Ann ended up writing a book where she told Jan's story as well as hers. And then after 42 years, they also put up how Bob finally was able to tell Mary Ann what happened between him and B. And it said that they stayed together up until Bob passed away in 2018. All I could think about was like, if I'm correct, and I meant to go back and look before I started this review, but I didn't. I forgot. But I wanted to see when Abducted in Plain Sight came out, because if I remember correctly, it had to have been right before Bob passed away. So I was just like, you know, that was probably like that last piece of healing for him to I guess get that story out. And you know, you see how long it took for him to tell things to Mary Ann about exactly what went down between him and B. But then, you know, just to kind of release all of that into the world on a public platform, that was probably just like his last piece of healing, I think. And so it seems like that movie or that documentary came out, you know, shortly before he supposedly passed if I, like I said, if I'm not mistaken. And then we just go on to find out that Jan has started a foundation for victims and their families. So y'all, yeah, a good series. It was hard to watch, definitely at moments. And then, like I said, you know, as much as I couldn't turn away, I'm so glad we are at the end, y'all. I really am. Because you just go through so many different emotions just watching that. And especially if you have been a victim yourself, in which I am. So it was some things were just so difficult to watch. And but yeah, glad we made it to the end, y'all. And as always, I cannot wait to hear what you all got to say. And I just know how something like this can continue to stay with somebody. So y'all just remember a prayer for them Brobergs and all they dealt with. I know we sit here and we just be like, how can one family be so naive? But it still doesn't take away from their experience and the things that they had to go through. And I know that there just is not anything that dissipates overnight. So y'all, as we end, just remember them in your prayers. And always, I'll pray for y'all. Y'all please pray for me. And we'll watch God continue to change things. Peace, y'all.